Welcome to There to Here, an educational podcast where industry professionals talk nuts and bolts and how they got from there to here. On today's show, Mike Wagner talks about life as an agent, how to find one, what to look for, and whether or not to worry about changes as a result of coronavirus. As this is a new podcast, we're really wanting feedback, so go to media.collabinc.org to fill out the feedback survey, and you'll be entered to win a $25 Amazon gift card. Congratulations to this week's winner, Kevin Christensen. We have more of these to give out, so let us know your thoughts. From Collab Inc., I'm Tanya Musgrave, and today I have Mike Wagner with us, a below-the-line agent for the Wagner Agency, representing below-the-line crew for close to 20 years. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing these days?
It's becoming a little bit more difficult. You know, I'm teaching my kid from home, and I'm not getting a lot of support from the school. And, you know, just after 7 weeks of this, it tends to wear on you.
It's starting to get to you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's starting to get to a lot of us. Earlier this week, it was not good. Not good at all. Counseling is an awesome thing. If I didn't have that, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah. Or just, you know, as soon as you speak to someone and you tell them what's going on with you, they're like, yeah, me too.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you don't feel as bad.
No, I didn't. I mean, you know, we had a brief conversation yesterday and we talked about that. And I'm like, you know what? It's good to know that other people are struggling as, you know, well, good to know in a sense that people are struggling, but it is difficult.
We'll get into that. I do want to hear a lot more about just like on the ground, how things are looking for you. But I feel like one of the classic origin stories out there kind of starts with, so I packed up my car and I went to LA and I got an agent. You know, that's just, just kind of one of the things. Now,
for sure.
I'll be perfectly honest. I have never talked with an agent, and of any kind. I didn't know that crew even had an agent. So the majority of our listeners are non-union below the line crew. And like, now that I've heard how people go and get an agent, I haven't heard the flip side of how one would get into being an agent. So what was it that drew you to that particular role?
Well, you know, I sort of have the classic story. I started in the mailroom at 20th Century Fox. Okay. My aunt worked for Loretta Swit, and they were doing MASH, and she knew the gentleman that worked in the mailroom, introduced me. I was able to get the job. You know, I had no idea. I came out here at 18 right after high school and just for the summer and never left. So got this great job. It was a lot of fun. I almost wish I would have stayed there another year because you meet so many people and you go into so many offices and people, you know, a lot of the secretaries are just dying to speak to you. You know, they just want someone to talk to because they're just sitting there mostly all day, right, by themselves in these little offices. So you get to know a lot, you know, and you get to meet a lot of people. I have some dear friends that I still deal with today that I met there. So that was a very nice experience, and then ended up, you know, going to work for a producer by the name of Keith Barish, and that was a lot of fun. I was very young at the time. I had this great company car. This is E28. So, you know, I thought life was pretty damn good, and I was having a really great time. Yeah. So, you know, I ended up, you know, sort of working at this talent agency, working with actors from that. And I really didn't like it. It just didn't fit me. It wasn't going well, and ended up at another agency that had a below the line department. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got into representing crew. I really liked it. I liked working with the producers and the production executives. It was pretty much straight. You know, do you have an opening? Is there a position available? And if there is, we have some business to do. And if there's not, you know, I'll check with you on the next project. Mm-hmm. So I liked the sort of nuts and bolts of it. It was a yes or no, you know, and I found it worked a little bit better for me. Yeah.
Is there a project that you are particularly proud of? I love hearing stories. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear a story about an agent. I hear the other story, like I got an agent and then I got this gig. I want to hear the story of the agent and how they got them the gig.
I'll tell you something. It's very gratifying when you work really hard to get a client a meeting, especially when you get no the first few times, and then it's a really great project. Yeah. And it all comes together. Yeah, it's very, very satisfying. You know, listen, there aren't a lot of first AD slots open.
Yeah.
You have to really work hard to find those opportunities because, listen, the director ultimately makes the choice. If the director's AD is available, that's who's getting the job.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah.
that guy isn't available, then you've got a line of producers that know ADs that will probably want to put their 2 cents in. And then you'll have a DP who will say, hey, my friend's available. It's not easy to find these slots,
Mm-hmm.
especially on good shows.
Mm-hmm. So pitch me, like, why should people, like, especially crew, why should they get an agent?
Well, listen, there are a few reasons. One is that you're working a lot and you're always worried about your next job, right? You're always and meeting people is not so easy. When you're on a set, 12 to 14 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very helpful to some. Just meeting new people, knowing what's out there. When I have a project to pitch to an AD, I need to know everything that they know about that project. I have them look into the project, see what sort of connections there might be to some of the other crew. I can, do a lot of that groundwork for someone that they just don't have time to do. Right now, obviously, there's no one to speak to about all this kind of stuff. But once things get cranked back up, there'll be plenty of calls to be made. And, some of my people will go back to their jobs. Some of them won't go back to their jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens at that point. So, just having someone out there, looking for you, trying to set you up with some new people to meet, you have to keep meeting new people. I know that there are a lot of first ADs that can stay on a show for several years.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good payday, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you don't meet anybody else. So when that show's over, you're sort of left with, oh my God, these are the only people I've worked with in the last 15 years.
I either have to eat or go meet new people. Which one am I going to do?
Yeah, right. So it's a lot of work on their half. When you find an agent, that doesn't mean that your work is done. You always have to, continue your contacts with people, keep your ear to the floor, see what's going on. And then with a lot of times, you're able to call an agent with that information. Hey, I just heard about this, can you look into it? And it makes their life a little bit easier.
So how would someone who's particularly non-union go about finding an agent?
I'll tell you something. If you're non-union, I only represent union people. This is another world to me. There may be agencies out there that you can find. I'm not aware of any, frankly, that might better serve you. But if you're non-union, it is what it is. It's not easy. And I've tried to help people in the past. I've had a little success with non-union people making the jump. Mm-hmm. And it almost always comes from some sort of contact that they worked with a non-union that also moved up. So
perhaps with the understanding that they were trying to get into the union, like maybe getting their days or.
Exactly right. I mean, that's what everybody has to do regardless of the union. You got to put in your days.
Yeah, of course. But I'm saying, like, if you chose to represent somebody who is non-union, would it kind of be under the understanding that they were at least trying to get into a guild or a union?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't, listen, I don't. The non-union world is so foreign to me. It's almost like, to me, I represent people in the 1 hour world mostly and miniseries, sort of speak. So I don't really have people in the 3 camera world. So if somebody came to me and said, I'm a multi-camera first AD, I wouldn't even, I would barely know who to speak to because it's just not my world. It's a completely separate world.
So it's extremely focused then. It's not just kind of a general, like, okay, everybody below the line, it's a lot more specific.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be. Even if I have a first AD that comes to me and says, I've only done 3 camera, like I said, I could probably not be helpful to them. I've had people come to me that are non-union and frankly, I say, I can't help you. I'm a one-man operation. I'm very focused on my particular world. Mm-hmm. And how you go about finding an agent, I don't know. I don't know any. Mm-hmm. That's the truth.
Yeah.
I know the one thing, though, take heart. You have to do what everybody else has to do. You have to work your ass off.
Yeah.
You have to put your hours in. You have to make your contacts,
It's not foreign to the people who are trying to get in there for sure.
No, I mean, listen, if you're in this business, you know you have to work your butt off. That's just a fact.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be aggressive.
For the people who are looking for an agent, these people that they're already working hard, they are trying to they're working towards going into a union or a guild. What should they be vigilant of?
I think that they would mostly want to have someone that they can reach on the phone and that will follow up for them, and that returns their calls and that shares information with them. If I hear of a show for a client, I will call them and say, this is everything I know. Find out what you know. Let's put something together. And if an agent has 60, 70 first ADs, it's hard to get the attention that you need, especially if you're not on the top tier of their client list. So I think you should be careful. Look for a personality that you like working with. Mm-hmm. Most of this business comes down to personality. When I have clients, 2 or 3 clients go into a meeting, or maybe they're not my clients, they're random 3 people. It's mostly about personality because they're all qualified. They're in the door.
So how often is that for you? Following up and keeping up with your clients?
As often as I need to be. Listen, things happen in spurts here. They can happen right away, or I can find out about a project and nothing's going to happen on that project. So I don't need to call. Are you talking about how often I should communicate with my clients?
Yeah. So is a week too long? Is a month too long?
I don't necessarily go a week without talking to a client who's not working.
Okay.
It's generally speaking, it's a couple times a week. And of course, it depends on time of the season and what's going on as well. There's not all, there's a busy time and there's not a busy time.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So as much information, I like to establish, I like to have a good relationship with my clients. Mm-hmm. And we talk about a lot of things other than work. And, I don't have a lot of them. So mm-hmm. we become friends.
Is that a typical question that you're able to, or that potential clients are able to ask you, how many clients do you work with?
Yeah. Fair question, I think. I'm a one-man operation. So am I representing, 12 people, or do I have, 60 people? Mm-hmm. And that will reflect, I think, upon my representation. How much time does this person have from me?
Mm-hmm. Of course. I'd sent an article to you. It was the death and the rebirth of Hollywood. And we can put that in the show notes. And it was kind of talking about the new landscape of what Hollywood is going to look like. And maybe not necessarily because of this. It was the path was already started, and this kind of was the catalyst to make it happen and make it happen faster. But, this is going to change a lot for agencies and, agents in general, especially with Hollywood kind of maybe not even being the central part. Atlanta would come up, or other places like Louisiana and New Mexico and that kind of thing. So for smaller cities and settings, I know people in Tennessee who are curious about agents as well. What would be your first point of advice for them? Google, or?
Well, I would say this. I am not aware of any below the line agent in Atlanta, New Orleans, New Mexico, or any other place except New York. In Atlanta, there may be, just because of the pressure, but I'm sure some of the bigger agencies have affiliates or something like that.
Okay.
So they're there. I don't know of in Nashville there may be some agencies, but I'm not sure that there are. Most of my people work in those smaller cities. They go there.
Okay, they go there, but they're based in LA.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, they'll go there. I have a lot of people that work in Atlanta. Now, right now, Atlanta, it's a sort of a different animal. It has probably 3 or 4 crews deep. So they don't bring people. And when they do, they bring them from LA or New York or wherever they have to bring them from.
Yeah.
So I don't know that necessarily there may be a local agency in Atlanta. There probably should be. There may be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But, my clients work all over. It doesn't, there's not little agencies that I'm aware of that would be that beneficial, except if you live in Atlanta and there's a local agency, jump on board for sure. Anything that can help.
What is something from your position can you see that has changed as a result? How has your industry changed?
I think they'll just add safety measures, and the show must go on. I don't, they'll have a couple more people on set, watching over things, I guess, making sure that, people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But, The crews may be a little bit smaller. You'll probably see less background people for a while, but eventually this is just going to pass. I don't necessarily see major changes.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the changes would be coming around mainly because of the change in industry of like streaming services more than COVID. I don't know. I had conversations with small business owners and with ADs, people who were part of the union, that kind of thing. And, there are changes that they can see happening, but there was also an opinion of this will have a relatively short tail because this hasn't happened for very long. It's been a few months and, it's not necessarily apocalypse.
Yeah, there may be some changes from last pilot season. Some of those pilots will be, they just won't happen at all. And some will just be ordered straight to series. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, the people will go back to work. It'll take some time. Unfortunately, it's going to be sort of a trickle. Other states will open up, I'm sure, before California.
Yeah.
Which is not good, but that's just the way it's going to be. And once it does, in a year's time, things will be rolling right along just fine.
Like the landscape of the industry is one thing. How is it for your business personally?
Well, everyone's out of work. Yeah. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, I have a client who just had twins.
Oh my word.
Yeah. So everything is stopped. It affects us all, I think, in a lot of ways the same way. So, thank God my wife is working. She works for the Veterans Administration. So I'm teaching my child, and I have the same story that most of my crew has. Most of my people have.
That comes with its own challenges.
Yeah, I mean, we're all dealing with sort of the same thing, and it's depressing, and so it's affecting them. But I chat with them now and again. There's not other than a text and people, getting updates on dog training and puppy training, as I should say, and asking how people's parents are doing mostly and stuff like that. There's not a lot to discuss.
Is there any way that anybody within the agency system is able to sustain themselves at this point?
Well, at my level, if you're at the bigger agencies, you're still getting some pay. You will be just fine. At an AD level, they're struggling, absolutely struggling. Yeah. This is going to, I think what is going to be like end up being a 4 or 5 month break when it's all said and done. It's been very difficult.
Dare I ask how PPP worked out for you?
You know what? Honestly, I didn't apply.
Yeah?
No. I'll be all right.
Yeah? Yeah.
We'll be okay. This won't go on for a lot longer. Mm-hmm. I prepare myself for some emergencies.
Mm-hmm. Well, so, I mean, literally in this kind of job, you have to. I mean, it's feast and famine constantly. So
I should mention to you that I lost a client to COVID.
Are you serious?
First AD by the name of Larry Lerner. And as far as I know, he's the only first AD that has passed from this.
Like actually passed.
Community. Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, I thought you meant like losing him as a client.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, he died.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, he passed away. So, and I think he's the only one.
Wow.
Because it's a very small community. And when he died, I got calls from people I haven't spoken to in a long time. The day, within hours.
Oh, my word.
So if anyone else had, I would know about it. So it's very sad. He was a real gentleman, a very nice man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
So it's affected me. It's affected a lot of people in a lot of ways.
In particularly lockdown where you can't return to normal.
No, it's not normal.
No.
Nothing about it is normal, and people are like getting tired of it.
And I'm so sorry to hear about him moving.
Thank you.
Is this something that is going to affect the jobs that you recommend, like vetting whether or not a workplace is safe for your clients?
Oh, I think that if there's any question about safety, then they won't go there.
Yeah.
The production itself.
Oh,
The
okay.
studios would be held liable. This is going to create a little bit of a monster because you let people go back to work. I mean, are you going to get sued if they get the virus? They're going to there'll be some obstacles to overcome. So I don't know necessarily that a production, if it's a studio production, they'll go to any place that seems that it could be an issue at all.
I am not entirely certain like how much say an agent gets in this kind of thing on like recommending that they go and do something. Is it just kind of you are making the connection and that's that and they make that decision or
No, listen, I recommend people do things all the time, and I understand every reason they don't want to.
yeah.
I have no issue with someone turning something down. They have their own personal reasons. But if I see it's a good project, I'll push them to do it. Absolutely. But ultimately, it's up to them.
We're a small media company as well. And so when we're trying to figure out whether or not we're going to ramp up for production, because we're tiny, millions of dollars are not at stake by any means. But even then, our lawyer was just like, you have to be extremely careful because there could be an argument for duress where
That's
people
right.
would feel manipulated into going in. But I mean, if you think about it, so many people being out of work for 4 or 5 months, you would think that they would be a little desperate.
Well, something, the first ADs are all about safety.
Yeah.
They're responsible for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if they feel a situation isn't safe, most of them speak up right away.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're in a situation, they're thinking, man, this is just not right. It's just not right. They can shut it down, and they will. So most of my clients would not go into a situation they thought was unsafe, and I don't see a lot of any of the studios really putting people in that position. Not now, anyway. Maybe let some time pass and things will loosen up a little bit. I'm sure.
I'm in a completely different situation where, because I was a freelance photographer for years, and then this was like the first full-time job that I actually got, and. At first it felt like a ball and chain, because anybody in this business, like you just need a little bit of that freedom,
Yep.
But I think of it and I'm just like, holy crap, that would have been me 3 years ago. Like I would be sunk. I would be in a car packing up all of my stuff and going home and like staying in my parents' backyard because like I wouldn't be able to do anything. Do you have any words of advice or thoughts that you'd have for people? Where should they go? Where should they how should they position themselves?
Well, do you mean professionally or personally or
Both.
words of
Both,
advice?
everything.
Well, listen, this too shall pass. I mean, this won't go on for a lot longer. Our lives will be back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, none of my people had to learn the hard way that you need to prepare for these kinds of things financially all the time. Shit happens, and you don't want to get caught.
Yeah.
You don't want to get caught because it can be devastating.
Yeah.
And it's as far as I know, so far my people are okay.
Good.
But just be prepared. That's all I can tell you. Just be prepared because this kind of things happen. And you know what? First ADs know that.
Mm-hmm.
This is the life. Their life is a bit of uncertainty because they don't have their next job lined up. Mm-hmm. Nothing is guaranteed. They don't have the office to go to after their current gig.
Yeah.
Right. So they're always sort of in the mindset of be prepared. Shit happens. I may not work. I may work. It's a lot of pressure, but that's what life is.
I feel like it's an interesting position that you're in because there are a lot of people that like they're usually the ones that want to be the one, like they want to be the star of the show, but like being the connector, I think that's pretty cool.
It is cool. And especially when it works out.
Yeah. So
because you know what? A lot of times it doesn't. You go into this project with these great expectations in this person that you've been dying to work with. It doesn't always work out.
So with the connections that you make, I mean, obviously you have to be pretty vigilant of the connections around you. But like who do you normally connect with? Is it producers? Is it directors?
Yeah,
or
the line producers?
Okay.
Yeah, the people that are hiring the crew.
Okay, so that's
most and production executives. But a lot of information that I get is directly from the producers. I hear about them, jumping on a show. I simply, get in touch with them, asking what their crew needs might be, and then we're off and running. But that's mostly who I deal with.
Oh man, that's super cool.
No, it is cool, and a lot of them are really, really great people. I've had Oh my God, I've had relationships with people who I've never met for so long since they've created the internet. Everything is email. I swear to God, and it's so easy and it's so convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have very short questions to ask people. Are you looking for a first AD?
Yeah.
And they get back to and what they like about it too is that I don't waste anybody's time. They're not wasting their time. If they, it's not that we don't speak. It just makes our lives a lot easier because they're getting a ton of emails. I can't imagine the amount of people contacting a line producer on a series about an open position, whether it be a first AD, a production manager, a DP, right?
Yeah.
They must be inundated with it. And you know what? That's part of something that they have to deal with because they're in that position.
I feel like that's probably the most opposite view that I had in my mind. I think of the agents as the ones who are like talking the ear off of producers and of their clients to be like, oh yeah, you're my shmuka here,
No, it's definitely a style thing, really. I mean, a lot of people like doing that. Uh-huh. I'm telling you, with all when you sign on to a project to be the line producer, you're off and running, and there's a lot to do, and you're getting a lot of calls. So everyone's life has become easier, I think, with quick communication.
So, okay. So how could people find you or an agent? Just Google agency?
Yeah, simple. Google it.
Yeah.
Google it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like everybody, that's how we find everybody now, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know if there was a certain like super secret club that like, oh, if you were part of this, then I know a really, really good agency kind of thing.
No, there are not a lot of agencies that represent, below the line. A lot of them, a lot of the bigger ones do now. There are a few.
So what is it when a company, like, would a company approach you and say like, hey, we're putting together production, for like this commercial. Could we contact, something like that? Is there anybody that you know?
No, I get. You mean, do I get calls directly from like producers looking for clients?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, for sure. Most of my job is making phone calls and sending emails and gathering information. Mm-hmm. That's all. All my clients want to know is what's going on and who's involved with it.
Yeah.
To have to get a call from it. When you call your agent and they say, well, there's nothing going on, it's disconcerting a little bit.
Yeah.
You have to have some information.
Don't know anything.
The more information that you have, the better off your clients are going to be and your relationship with them will be.
Well, I really appreciate your time that you've given, your insight. This is really interesting talking to an agent for the first time.
Well, I hope I was helpful. It's been a pleasure speaking with you as well.
No, I appreciate it. So thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time. If you enjoyed this interview, follow us right here and check out more episodes at collabinc.org. If you have comments or know someone who would be a great guest on our show, send in your suggestions to Tanya@collabinc.org. Again, we're really wanting feedback, so go to media.collabinc.org, fill out this feedback survey, and you'll be entered to win a $25 Amazon